Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin. I'm a holistic nutrition consultant and the author of grassfedgirl.com. Today, we're so excited. We have Dr. Jaban Moore here with us. He is a functional practitioner in Kansas City. Welcome, Dr. Jaban.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. Carnivore has been a topic that I have been absolutely loving just learning about and adding into my practice.
Sounds like you've been trying it out for yourself. How did you get interested? And tell us a little bit about your health journey.
Yeah, so, I got interested because clients are coming to my office and I work with some of the very, very chronic clients out there, whether it be Lyme disease, autoimmune, such as like lupus, RA, mast cell, chronic inflammatory response syndrome, and then a lot of kids with PANS and PANDAS, which is autoimmune encephalitis. So that's like the practice area that I'm in, but I'm there because I love it. I love helping people. I had Lyme disease when I turned 25 is when I figured that out. I think it happened probably back a few years earlier. Probably I got bit by ticks my whole life. I was an outdoor guy. I went and did all the things. I was a college and high school All-American athlete. So when Lyme disease kind of just knocked me down at 25, I was like, this doesn't feel right. It doesn't make sense. I'm doing all the right things right. Like I'm eating the best I'd ever ate at 25. I'd cleaned up from college, right? So I was doing better. I had lost all my extra weight that I put on as a shot putter in college. So I was like, I was stressed because I was in chiropractic school, but I wasn't overly stressed. And when the bottom fell out and I got erectile dysfunction, I had brain fog, fatigue, I had pain. It just didn't make sense to me. So I was going to all these conferences, Datis Karazian conferences, the DABC, which is the internist training that you can take when you're in chiropractic school or natural medicine school. And nobody had answers for me. They're like, take L-carnitine, take L-arginine, do things to help with your energy system, like B vitamins, run blood tests. And everything came back normal. And I didn't have an answer until I was sitting at a conference one day and somebody said, well, what about Lyme disease? And I said, I've heard of it. I don't know anything about it. Tell me about it. They're like, well, I don't know anything about it either, but it's this thing that makes people sick that they don't ever find. I'm like, okay. So then I went down that rabbit hole and I spent not very long, honestly. I actually found somebody that was really competent in Lyme really quickly because he happened to be a connection through some training I had done. And within a few months of working with him, I was significantly better. And then that just drove me to want to help people because I thought I was going to be like a sports med chiro helping athletes because I was a former athlete, but that's what really drove my passion. And so that just pushed me into Lyme, that led me to parasites, to heavy metals, to radioactive elements, and to where I am today. I just keep running into roadblocks with a new client that comes in that's struggling. And I'm like, fine, I'm going to figure this thing out. And if I can't understand it, I'm going to call my friends, Dr. Todd or Jess or whoever, and I'm going to figure out how we can help this person because I knew what it was like to feel hopeless to some degree. And I wanted to figure it out. And that's what actually brought me to Carnivore, is just continuing to educate myself on tools to help people.
That's so great because I think a lot of people just go down the conventional route and they block out everything and just say, well, I'm just going to do the same old thing, and doesn't help people who are really suffering. And I think that's the same people who go to carnivore is the people who've tried everything, because you don't just cut every single thing out of your diet until you've tried it. It's not like for fun, you are desperate to help yourself. So that's great that you take that root cause approach. So when you've seen people do carnivore, tell us, when you first started seeing it in your practice and you heard about it, and what did it help people, or were there limitations?
So carnivore to me, when I first heard about it, I was like, honestly, carnivore for me feels natural, but all my training was screaming, no, 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 don't do that. But people were trying it anyway because they were desperate and they kept coming into my office. And at first, I did take notice that people that were vegan, especially males, their testosterone levels would be like 1 or 200. And they're supposed to be above 500. So, I mean, that's like crippling for a male to feel a 1 or 200 testosterone level. So I always knew vegan wasn't a lifestyle that we'd want to live for a long period of time based off of just seeing people. So then when carnivore started coming in, I was just like, okay, what has your diet been, as a part of my intake? And then we get labs back, and these carnivore guys would be like 900, 1,000. I saw one guy at 1,250, and that was like the final blow to my carnivore isn't an option for me mindset. I mean, and it was just because I was like, I like variety. I've always been taught to eat variety. When that guy came in at 1,250, I'm like, okay, the male, the like the that whole psyche that we have of let's get our testosterone level higher, let's get stronger. I was like, fine, let's do it. So I was like, all right, I'm going to try carnivore. And I dove in and I felt good on it. But you asked about clients. That was the biggest thing that I saw, was this wide difference between plant-based diets, low testosterone, animal-based diets, high testosterone. But then the other things that I was seeing in women that were coming in, they had more vibrant body, like language. They were just more alive. They had more energy when they ate more meat. They had less hormone issues. They had far less inflammation and chronic inflammatory response or mast cell type reactions. So their histamine reactions were way less. And it was stabilizing their skin conditions like eczema for male and female. It was stabilizing tons of skin conditions by going carnivore. So I go, what in the heck is happening? So other parts of research that I had gotten into was I was avoiding oxalates for many clients because we'd run an organic acid test and we'd see oxalates elevated, which can come from mold, fungus, or plant-based diets, or just certain plants that carry oxalates, which are a poison. They're a poison designed to protect them from being eaten. Same thing with nightshade vegetables, succinolates, and so many other vegetables or plants. How do they protect themselves? Because they're a living organism. They literally create a poison so that animals won't eat them, because if they eat a little bit of it, they might get sick or not feel well. So it kept animals from eating it. So that's the defense mechanism a plant has. Well, what's the defense mechanism an animal has? Claws, teeth, ability to run, right? So they don't create toxic muscle tissue or tissue inside their body. So it actually, for a person that's sick and has an overactive immune system, it makes sense that a human can eat meat. And then the other part that I've said for years, when people kept trying to make me go vegan, I said, I see people on allergen tests every day test to be allergic to all these plants and hardly ever test to be allergic to mammal meat. I go, so explain that to me, and then I might consider more vegan. So this is my just logical, like non-biased brain looking at all these different facts. And then when I put some bias in there, I start researching and I see all these plant toxins. And then, I also answered what you were saying about why animals, or what my patients were seeing. So yeah, I just talked too much. So anyway, go ahead.
Well, I mean, what do you think what do you think it means about like a person who who gets down to where their diet is just animal protein or just beef? What does that say about that person?
So, I don't love that carnivore has such a small variety of foods, because you do have 40,000 bacteria that are named inside your gut, at least 40,000. So just think about that. That's named bacteria. Now, of those 40,000, you may have 100,000 or a million of each of that bacteria. So there's trillions of organisms in our body. And the fact that a person can get down to the point where they're eating one source, you're only going to feed so many of those bacteria. So you will create a microbiome issue. But is it that you're creating that issue, or is it that issue has been created based off of the chemical toxins, the cesarean birth, the antibiotic use that has been put into our body that has led to a decreased microbiome? So now that's all you can digest. Also, if you can only eat let's say beef, what else is a problem? Well, there's very few people that are only eating carnivore that do it for fun, right? Like, we're not eating that way to eat that way for fun. We're eating that way because we've been forced into it and it worked. Otherwise, you would fall off of it pretty quickly. I ate this way because I was doing it for clients. So I went hard, only meat for 30 days. And then I went 30 days of meat plus little bits of other things like a honey or a fruit or whatever, or a cheat meal for another 30 days. And now I'm to where I'm about 80, 90% carnivore, but not 100%. And why? Well, I didn't feel, outside of losing weight, losing inflammation, and feeling more satiated, I didn't have any change in my body because I felt well. I feel good. But if you're autoimmune, if you're chronic inflammatory response syndrome, if you have mast cell, if you have histamine responses, then your body is overactive at attacking things, especially things that cause an inflammatory response or an immune response, which most, not most, maybe most actually, if you stop and think about it, plants do cause that on purpose to protect themselves. They make your immune system flare on purpose to protect themselves. I mean, you got to let that sink in. I use garlic, black walnut, oregano in my clinic as antimicrobials so that I can go after and change your body's expression of Lyme disease or C. diff or Clostridia strep parasites, right? I use these foods in a very concentrated tincture way to change the expression of your immune system and your microbiome. So if you're eating those every day, why wouldn't that change the expression? Well, it does, which is why people have to eat meat only, because their immune system or microbiome are so out of whack that just a little bit triggers a flare. Whereas for me and my body, now that I've been well from Lyme for a number of years and balanced my microbiome, I don't have that response.
It's fascinating that that somebody can just be on so high alert. I mean, that's how it feels like my body. And then I feel like I was really getting well, and then on carnivore, and then I went and had a baby, and then I had C-section and antibiotics and all that. So it's like I kind of started back at square one, you know?
Yeah, well, the process of pregnancy is an amazing, beautiful process. And honestly, I just got married, and my wife and I are definitely talking about having kids shortly. So I don't want to make it sound bad, but I'm about to say some things that might offend somebody. A baby is technically, to your body, by definition, a parasite, right? It stresses you out and doesn't really add anything to your body to make you healthier. It's worth it, but that's the truth. And then you said some things after that are even harder on the body, which is cesarean antibiotics. All these things put your body into a state of fight or flight. It's a sympathetic state. It's a nervous system state.
And then you don't sleep.
And you don't sleep, and you're taking care of them. It's not about you anymore. It's about your baby. And if your body's in a healthy spot, you can adapt and you can overcome that. But if you're unhealthy and autoimmune, you actually can watch somebody's antibodies to their, say, Hashimoto's go up because of the stress that happens due to this process. And again, I want some babies in my life, but I know that for my wife, as she's going through this, that I'm going to have to be there and help her, but we're going to be doing some nervous system calming work because I can't give her some of the herbs. By the way, herbs are plant-based, kind of universally. I can't give those to her because it's going to cause potential die-off in her body from organisms, and that can go to the baby. So you said the perfect thing. You're in heightened, you're in fight or flight. And fight or flight is so important to be aware of, because that's why your body has Hashimoto's to a point, to part of it. It's why you have these reactions to plants and you can't eat them. So you've got to get out of that state of heightened body function and down. And that's how you're going to be able to get off of carnivore. Not saying you have to get off of carnivore, but have the option or the variety, the ability. And that's why I tell all my clients, like, my goal isn't to tell you at the end of our protocol what you necessarily have to eat. It's to give you the ability to tolerate life, and then to also know that you need to have some healthy habits or you're going to go back.
Yeah. And so how would somebody reintroduce a couple things after they've been carnivore for a while?
So if you've been carnivore for a while and it helped you, maybe you have gotten rid of SIBO, or you've gotten rid of parasites that thrived off of the previous diet you had. It's possible. So you can always go ahead and try to add foods back. When I tell people to add foods back, it's always very slowly, especially for plants. And I do think that adding back the more of the non-toxic plants such as the melons and the fruits is going to be easier for someone to add back slowly. But you also have to remember, as you're adding these foods back, you're adding sugar back, you're adding carbs back. If you have reactions to them, you need to think about not, oh, dang it, I'm having a reaction to this food that sucks, which it does, but you got to step back for a moment, separate yourself and say, why would I be reacting to this food? Is it the sugar? Is it the carbs? So did my blood sugar spike? If your blood sugar didn't spike, it wasn't a blood sugar problem. Is it the toxin within the food? So raspberries have oxalates. So is it that problem? So if that's triggering me, if I still have oxalates in my system after being carnivore, do I have mold in my environment? Or do I have candida yeast as an issue or in my environment? Because that can also be in your house. So these would be two things that would be really something to really look at as being an issue from oxalates. So I start using food to help give me a window into what the problem may be. And that gives you a way to know how to move forward. But the other piece is, even if you healed your body through carnivore, but eating plants still trigger you, is it a nervous system or an immune system issue? Does your body have some sort of what I call autoimmune PTSD? So your body, the immune system sees those things and has PTSD to it, right? So it has the memory that you are supposed to react to that because it was bad for you at some point. So now it's going to attack it anyway, even though it's no longer a problem. So then I had to start talking people through nervous system work. So should you be doing some kind of DNRS, breath work, brain neurofeedback, or some kind of, just relaxation techniques using binaural beats, which are on most sound platforms, or even diffusing things like, I believe doTERRA has an adaptive oil, or lavender or calamine, or vanilla type calming oils. And I use all of these different things with my clients to help just bring their nervous system back into this calmer state, so that when you do reintroduce food, your body can actually look at it like, hey, am I going to react to the toxin, not to the trauma that your body associates with that food?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I think the whole stress thing is such overlooked, and most people have no tools and um, no toolbox to work on their stress. They just freak out, and that's it. It's like, or they have alcohol, or they have substances of
Yeah.
some, is some kind of vape or some crap. I don't know.
Well, harmful things are things you just mentioned, but the things that I mentioned were definitely tools. But even if you want to use your insurance, EMDR can be really useful. It's probably my favorite type of specific therapy. But so many people that have autoimmunity well, let's put it to you this way: 80% of people that had a childhood adverse event, so identify with having a childhood where there was something that rough happened to them, end up becoming autoimmune. So they need to deal with that child adverse event to reduce their autoimmunity, reduce their food allergies. But as adults, we have traumas too. You lose a parent, you have a relationship that ends poorly. Hopefully you haven't experienced things like this, but there are things like rape or assault, or your business closing due to this whole thing that happened over the last couple of years. These are traumas that you experience, and you need to deal with those traumas emotionally through EMDR or the other tools that I mentioned. My favorite right now being neurofeedback. And if you can deal with that trauma, it will allow your nervous system to calm. And that's just a step, right? So carnivore allowed you to calm, but it's just enough to keep you here. Now, if you take the next step and address the traumas, and you make sure that you address the toxins and infections in your life. So by eating organic foods and cooking in non-toxic pans and pots, making sure that the air in your home is clean from mold and VOCs and formaldehydes that are coming off of all of your pressed wood junk materials that you're using, versus buying that real wood or healthier materials in your homes. Because by the way, your air in your home usually is 2 to 3 times more toxic than the air outside of your home, because it just gets condensed in there. So we got to do all these things, and you can start simply. You can start with breath work, buying an air filter, and getting a pan from even like your big box store for like $29. It's ceramic, and that starts to lower your stress burden, which will allow you to step out into more foods over time.
Yeah, and cleaning up your personal care, and like You don't need
Mhm.
all that junk. Like, just use some Dr. Bonners and, you know, that's it.
For sure. I mean, even women with makeup and hygiene, there was a study that 50% of lipsticks actually had lead in them. I mean, it's incredible. So buying clean is so important, because it helps to decrease the stress burden on your body. And there's so many easy ways to do it. Whether, I don't know if you post any of those things. I know we do. If you're an essential oil person, I'm sure that you can follow an essential oil person that posts how to make everything out of essential oils for health and hygiene. So
Yeah. I mean, I use Young Living. You can get my link down below. And my Amazon shop has my favorite pan and all the soaps and everything in it. That, yeah, that was a big part of my healing process, was going through my house and um, becoming aware of those things. So
it's
because we're running out of time here, let's see about what are some things people can do at home to heal themselves, because not everybody has the money to work with a functional practitioner like you.
So of course, I always tell people that if you're in a really chronic state, you may need a practitioner, but sure, I mean, there are plenty of people out there that have gotten well on their own, especially just from researching. So I produce a ton of content that gives a lot of direction. My Facebook group, True Healing Strategies, I have a guide, a detox guide of things that you may want to do. We have a mold guide that we've sent out. It's on our website that you can click a link to understand more about mold. But the steps are pretty lined up in my mind of things that you need to pay attention to. One, you've got to create a safe environment. So click her links, get her pan, make sure you're using the appropriate oils that are replacing the nasty scented candles that are so toxic that it's literally when you light that and you start smelling, your immune system is going like, this is bad for you, right? So do those sorts of things to create a safe environment. If you have trauma, address the trauma. You cannot bypass the trauma, which is probably the single hardest thing for most people to do, is to address the trauma, because it's heavy and it's hard. But if you can do that, that is another big step forward. If you've got a toxic parasite in your life, whether that's your boss or some mean neighbor or a family member that you just shouldn't spend much time with, start distancing yourself from that toxic person, not just the toxic pants, right? So just cutting the things out of your life that don't need to be there, that are causing stress to your system. You got to do that. The next piece that we take on to is making sure that we can allow for toxins to come out of our body once we've dealt with the nervous system work and the non-toxic safe life. So detoxing, if you have skin issues, your lymph is backed up. If you don't go to the bathroom every single day, and I know on carnivore I didn't, so I had to start adding a few things to help me. There are some hacks within carnivore, and maybe you've talked about these, making sure that your types of proteins are actually, and amino acids are balancing. Eating those oxtails, eating those different types of cuts of meat can really help to benefit your bowels to move more effectively. So making sure you go every single day of the week. Number two, at least once. The goal is to go 2 or 3 times. Is helpful, because if you're going to start clearing your body of toxins, it has to come out. Then you need to make sure you add things in. And here's where plants help. They are helpful for antimicrobial purposes, which is also why they may bother you. So using things like finding some tinctures. I like some different tinctures out there. Cellcore is a brand that I like. You can get it from my e-store. My e-store is Dr. Jaban on Shopify, Dr. Jaban Moore, and my code is literally Dr. Jaban. Right. So that's how you get in there. You can get Cellcore. That Cellcore has entire kits and processes that you can go through without a practitioner.
Oh, wow.
So step one is getting your drainage open. So doing things like castor oil packs, which is literally taking a pack, putting it over top of your liver and allowing for that castor oil to help your liver to detox. From there, you can do coffee enemas, you can do red light therapies, you can do saunas. If you don't have the money to go do a red light therapy, at dawn and dusk, infrared light from the sun itself is at its peak. You just get out there with as much skin as you can get out there in, and that helps you. Focusing on circadian rhythm will help you to detox. Dry brushing is a $3 brush. You just brush toward your heart, and that's going to help you to drain your lymph, right? So I've spent time talking about Safe Life, getting the drainage open. Once you get the drainage open, there's some supplements that I like for detox, which are TUDCA, which is actually an animal-based thing. It helps to get bile starts producing, so you have more bile. So liver can detox more for you on a natural level. Getting that coming out is good. And then you can throw in some binders. I like Cellcore's HMET binder or biotoxin binder. If those are more expensive, then you can always go with charcoals. Charcoals are very inexpensive. However, as the fulvicumics, you can take forever. They do not take minerals. Charcoals they will take your minerals. So you can only do those for so long, but they are definitely very effective and very inexpensive. And that can
Wow.
bind up some of the toxins that are coming out of you.
Did you see your testosterone go up on carnivore?
I haven't retested because it was like mid-January when I started.
Okay.
But I definitely lost weight, put on muscle mass. So my thought is yes.
Okay.
But then once you get the detox and the drainage, so Safe Life, detox, drainage, then we move to our next step, which is actually going antimicrobial. If you've got bloat, you've got parasites. It's pretty well that simple. I can run all kinds of panels for you and we can test things, but that comes at an expense. If you're not wanting to work with a practitioner, it's going to be harder. So my assumption is you have parasites, you have GI dysbiosis, and you have fungus, because anytime you have the other two, you're going to have fungus. You cannot get rid of Candida yeast unless you get rid of the toxins out of your body and you get rid of the parasites out of your digestive tract. So you've got to go after that. And then once you've gotten the organisms out, which Cellcore has great products for that, so does Byron White, so does Supreme Nutrition, and I use all of those. Once you get all of those out and your body's now healthier and you can have a wider variety, that's when I start talking to people about things that are going to force the body to regenerate. I love getting people to do a 5 to 7 day fast, but this is once you're pretty well, right? So this is not initially. This is once your body's really strong, because that will help your body to create something called autophagy, where it will break down your own tissue on purpose. But your body is so intelligent, it will only break down bad tissue and it will reuse that as a fuel source during the fast, but it will get rid of those weakened tissue. So imagine if you had a muscle tissue that was, its functionality was a 1, but and it's keeping reproducing. You want to get rid of those guys. So those guys can't last through a fast. And the longer your fast, the 1s go away, the 2s, the 3s, the 4s. I don't want any of those weak cells left in my body. I want my healthy cells to be regenerating, my 10s. So the longer your fast, the more 10s you're going to allow to regenerate, and the more 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s will die off, turn into food, and feed your 10s. And then at the end of all of that, hopefully we can eat food as we need. Probably more shifted carnivore for me forever now. I really love it, but at least it allows you to have the variety, and you should see some major healing if you make it through that process.
That's some great tips, Dr. Jaban. It's really just, I think people just have to have this long-term mindset and really just put themselves first, and just dive into some great resources like your information. It seems like you could learn so much from watching your Instagram and your lives and everything. So tell everyone where they can find you.
So all of my stuff, my Facebook page, Instagram, YouTube, and website are Dr. Jaban Moore. And my name is spelled Jaban. For those who haven't heard that name before, Dr. Jaban Moore.
Well, awesome. I think this is going to be really helpful for a lot of people. So you guys make sure and follow Jaban, and I will put his links down below. Thank you so much for watching today. We'll see you next time. Please share, subscribe, leave a comment down below. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.